I got pregnant with my son, Cooper. He's our third son. I got pregnant in September 2012. Everything was going great. We waited till we knew he was a boy at about 18 weeks to announce we were pregnant because we've had trouble prior. And so we announced he was a boy and we were going to have 3 boys. And about 2 weeks later, we went in for our 20-week routine ultrasound. And looking back, like, we checked in and you can, sorry, I'm gonna start crying. You can just remember these details, like, it was the first day of winter that year, and the lady at the desk said, "This is the most depressing day of the year." She didn't know anything was wrong, and neither did I. And then I was just sitting in the waiting room, and I just looked at my husband. I'm like, I just think something's going to be wrong. He's not moving as much as the other boys did. And of course, I'm just a worry wart. So he was just like, you know, you're crazy. Everything's fine. We are going to have 3 beautiful boys. So went into the ultrasound, and I was talking to the ultrasound tech and just said, you know, she asked, do you have any concerns? And I just said, he's not moving as much as I think he should be moving. So she didn't even do the ultrasound at all. She just went and got the doctor immediately. So he started scanning me. He was very quiet. I was looking at the ultrasound. I couldn't tell if anything was wrong, but before he even spoke a word, he stood up and he walked over and got a box of tissues for me. And I knew something was going to be wrong. He said, "I can't even tell what gender your baby is because he's so swollen. His legs are so swollen." He had something called fetal hydrops, and there's fluid in his abdominal cavity, there's fluid in his lungs, and there's fluid in his limbs. My doctor didn't know whether or not it was a fatal condition. He had some suspicions of some certain chromosomal abnormalities, but he wasn't sure. So we were referred to a specialist whom we were to see the following day. So that night, we just Googled everything to, you know, is it going to be okay? Is he going to survive? At that point, we just didn't know at all. So then the next day, we went back in. We got more scans. I had an amniocentesis. We met with a genetic counselor who spoke to us about Turner syndrome and Down syndrome and what we might be dealing with. And little did she know that we wouldn't have to deal with any of that because they told me that my son had a condition that was incompatible with life. He had a cystic hygroma, which is just kind of like a fluid-filled tumor on his head. And they were surprised that he was still alive at that point. Most babies with his condition are miscarried very early on. So we knew he would die. We didn't know when. It was very unlikely that he would be born alive. So for the next 2 weeks, we planned his funeral. Yeah, it's just crazy going to a funeral home and speaking to somebody across the table and you feel your baby moving and kicking and hiccuping and yeah, so planned his funeral, got everything ready for that, and then had a few more ultrasounds and he was still fighting, and then eventually we went to an ultrasound and I just knew when she was searching for his heartbeat, I could tell that he was gone. So I was induced that night. I was induced that night, and then it took all night for my body to dilate because my body wasn't ready yet. I was 22 weeks along. And so he was born on February 5th, 2013. He was about 9 inches long. He fit just, you know, in my husband's hand perfectly. He was a little over a pound, and his name is Cooper Gene Dunlap. And that's our little boy. So.
Was your community supportive?
Um, yes and no. I feel like when you have a child who's born, the first question everybody asks is, were you full term? Why? Why does it matter? Like, he was still a baby, and he was still my baby and my child, and so I feel like, I don't know, I don't know. Yes, kind of. They were sad for me, but I don't know that he's acknowledged like he should be, or like I want him to be.
Have you done anything to remember him?
Every year on Cooper's birthday, we send balloons to heaven. I have a 7-year-old and a 3-year-old, and then I write him a letter and tie it to the balloon. So every year I send him a letter to heaven. Every year at Christmas, we find a child that would be Cooper's age, and then we buy appropriate gifts for that age and then donate them.
That's really nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. So it's kind of like we're buying him presents, but then we...
Would you say there's a difference in how you and your partner or your husband were grieving?
Yeah, my husband is very just closed off and numb. Even to this day, I haven't seen him cry. Like, he'll say vocally, like, I miss him, I love him, but I don't see it. And he says he's just being strong for me, and he's just different than me, but yeah, very different.